Does this mean that the institution is owned by a proprietor? Is it privately held?
It is. It's a business like any other. We are a for-profit school. It's a for-profit business.
Mm-hmm.
But that's doesn't mean that it isn't about education either, because that's truly what our focus is. We focus on the needs of the student, what they need to be successful, and making sure that we're delivering that every single day.
One of the things that we didn't address earlier was how many students are involved in West Virginia Junior College. You're part of a larger system, aren't you?
Yes. There are 3 colleges in West Virginia specifically, and then we also have schools, a school in Ohio, actually a couple schools in Ohio, and a school in Pennsylvania as well.
Okay. Okay, now are you guys the largest campus?
I honestly don't know the populations of all the
Right.
campuses. I focus on mine
Sure.
Every day,
Sure.
and we're about 200 students.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. What is the relationship of your institution to the regional accrediting bodies?
We are not regionally accredited. We are nationally accredited.
Okay.
While our national accreditation follows many of the same standards as regional accreditation, but we find that the national accrediting body, ACICS, the Accrediting Council for Independent Colleges and Schools, that they're a little more flexible in how we work with our programs. And we need that in order to keep our programs flexible so that we can change them when we need to reflect the needs of the business community.
Can you operationalize that a little bit, maybe with an example? When you talk about flexibility,
Sure.
What might, I mean, I know what the idea of starting a new program, looks like in a institution that's regionally accredited, and it could be a very long, arduous process. Does it look a little different for you guys?
I would say that the process is very similar, actually, except that we will be able to probably move on a program a little bit faster because we just need to make sure that the program matches our mission. And as long as we're doing that, then our accrediting body is usually okay with our changes. More importantly, we'll have an advisory board meeting every year where we bring in outside business owners, basically the people who employ our students, our externship sites. We invite them in, ask them to look over our programs and suggest any changes. If they're seeing something in the marketplace that's changing for them, we want to be able to change our program to reflect it so that the students who graduate are up to date on the latest and greatest technologies or latest and greatest skills to keep them in a competitive marketplace.
That was one of my questions was, to whom are you accountable? I know you mentioned the national accrediting body, but you also are saying that the stakeholders in the community are also vital.
Absolutely. Without our employers, students aren't going to be able to get jobs. We need to make sure that we're responsive to their needs.
Ashley, what was it like for you as you made the transition? I know you've been involved in both public and private higher education, but now you're involved in a proprietary private education. Does it look different for you?
There's a different look and a different feel. But truthfully, I have been involved in both, and I'm a product of the traditional nonprofit. All of my degrees are from that background. But a lot of those models are becoming kind of antiquated and archaic. And we live in an era now where we hear a lot about distance learning. We're trying new things. We're trying to develop new ideas and strategies moving forward that can accommodate the non-traditional student. So for me, looking at these different strategies was a good fit because I like the idea of things like distance learning, modular classrooms in the form of like satellite campuses, things like that. Because I think that we've definitely moved beyond the nature of what it started, where 4 or 5 days a week you're sitting physically in a classroom, and now you're doing like a blended studying where it's we call it hybrid, where it's a combination of online and in the classroom on campus. So there are different things happening. There's a lot of moving parts, but ultimately it's aimed at one goal, and that is to deliver the best possible education for the student and get them from the classroom into a career.
There are a lot of criticisms of for-profit higher education, and I'd like to explore a few of those today, and then also talk about some of the advantages from your perspectives. What that might look like. The NEA Higher Education Research Center indicated in a report that the short proprietary education programs tend to enroll students that may have more economic or academic risk characteristics than typical students from traditional colleges. First of all, what do you make of that claim? And then secondly, if this is true, how do you mitigate some of those risks? Eric?
I would say that the claim is somewhat true. Based on the students who started our school, the vast majority of them have transcripts coming in from other colleges. So to say that we enroll, at-risk students, we certainly do, but we know it going into it because they're coming to us with transcripts showing that they haven't been able to be successful at another school. That is by far the majority of the students that we have. But we do that, and we plan ahead. We have actually an exam that it's a self-assessment that the student will take before they ever start. And it will identify any what we call red flags, any characteristics that would cause challenges or problems for them when they start out school. And then Ashley will actually sit down with them and go over those before they start school. We also start with a pretty lengthy admissions process where students will be sit down, they'll be interviewed, asked a series of questions, and we'll try and dig deep to find any of those challenges that they might encounter. And then, turn it back on them and pose, questions. Well, how are you going to overcome that challenge? You say that you have kids. Well, do you have daycare lined up? We make sure that they're able to overcome those challenges before we accept them into the school.
Now, was this early warning system that you have, was this part of the school, long before you came? Is this something that you've been implementing or refining during your tenure?
When I originally started with West Virginia Junior College, the admissions process was already in place. We did add the assessment later on that actually goes over with the student. But that started up almost immediately when I started. But it was new to the school, and it has allowed us to identify, instances where students, might see that they could not be successful. Some of those include if they're the first person in their family to go to college. Well, that means that their support system might not be in place. If their parents or siblings or other family members don't understand what being in college is all about, that doing that extra work after school, not having time to do some of the things that they would normally do, if they don't have that support system, then it can be more difficult, more challenging to finish school.
Do you have any kind of mechanism in place? And actually, I want you to pick up also with what Eric was saying as well, but do you have any mechanisms in place to help identify students that may have special needs and then a way to address some of those? Maybe learning difficulties or things like that?
Well, one of the things that we're fortunate that we have is a front line of defense in the form of instructors, our faculty, because I have certainly been, on that end as well. And a lot of times faculty will identify problems, and these are issues that may or may not have always been addressed up front. Maybe these are issues that sometimes weren't disclosed fully by the individual because, life happens again. Sometimes we're not proud of things, and it's kind of funny because I see where I am now and I think back to how mediocre of a student I was in undergraduate, on the undergraduate level. And a lot of times I didn't ask for help in the form of tutoring services or things like that. So we do have steps like Eric was alluding to, and to kind of reinforce that. We do have steps that we take from beginning and throughout to make sure that if any problems arise, whether it's a learning issue, whether it's an issue with faculty specifically, even curriculum content, return on service in the classroom, we make sure that we jump on those immediately. And we have a really good solid team of faculty that helps to bring forth and identify any kind of issue like that.